driven by historic drought conditions and winds fueling a blowtorch. Wildfire season in full force way too early. The harbinger, Northern California's Dixie Fire.
Fire has just become such a major management issue for us, and we're just seeing more and more fires and fire effects that we didn't expect. And so fire is driven by so many different variables. Obviously, the climate and weather are super important looking at fire behavior and fire effects. Because of both logging, which removed a lot of our large trees from these forests, and fire suppression, we now have trees that are characterized by pretty much a very high density of small trees, so second growth trees. If an area had previously burned at high severity, it generally had a very high density of snags. And one of the reasons is because we have, as a result of fire suppression, we now have really, really dense forests with much higher tree densities than we would have seen if we had allowed fire to burn frequently at low severity. So this area is at very high probability of reburning at high severity again, which could potentially happen as soon as 6 or 10 years from now, which is something that's almost unheard of for our Sierra Nevada forest. And unfortunately, in the Dixie Fire, we had something like 300,000 acres of mixed conifer forest burn at high severity. And all of those areas are now set up perfectly to burn in high severity again.
That's part of the reason we're seeing a lot more of these impacts related to fire danger. The term over the past few years, atmospheric thirst, has been used to describe evaporative demand, and I really like that term because think of it as the atmosphere, having its straw in basically the water and the land surface, and it's basically sucking that moisture off of the surface due to the weather conditions. The combined decreasing humidity and increasing temperatures have been the biggest factors in increasing the evaporative demand. And that's having a big impact on further drying out of the soils and the vegetation, making droughts more severe and leading to more days with high fire danger in the summer and fall. You can look at temperature alone, humidity alone, you can look at the evaporative demand, and they all kind of tell the same story right now, is that because of the combined increased temperature and lowering humidity, they're leading to these more drier land surfaces and fuels. If you lose the snowpack earlier in the mountains, the soils and the plants and the dead and the live vegetation, they're going to be exposed earlier in the dry season, and so then they're going to be able to dry out quicker.
The Highway 70 corridor is kind of that last green swath. It includes Quincy, Kronberg, Sloat, Gregg, Old Blairston, Portola, and Meadow Valley on the other end. And so we really need to get good at figuring out how we're going to exist within a landscape that burns regularly. Not think that we're going to exclude fire, which we've already failed at, right? More recent science says that we need about 60% or more of our landscape in a resilient state. And the only way we're going to get to that other 30% of the landscape in a lot of cases is by allowing fire to play its natural role. We're pretty good at what we do, and under the right conditions, managed fire is the most effective tool we have at our disposal for large landscape fuels management and forest management. I think that if we're going to be successful, we have to embrace it, we have to start using it more, and we have to start understanding it better and helping the public understand it better. This year we saw situations that I've never really experienced before as a land manager. All of the fuel was so dry, a fire that generally would have smoldered for days, it was done within hours of flame front passage. So when you think about that amount of energy release happening all at once or in that short time frame, it's not really a surprise how you saw these big, like pyrocumulus atomic bomb looking clouds above the fire, because that's how much energy was suddenly being released. When you go out to the fire area, you'll notice that a burned landscape where you would have expected to see some big logs left on the ground, there's just ash pits. We know with pretty high degree of certainty that this whole landscape If it doesn't get treated, it's going to reburn in the next decade, and it's probably going to burn just as dramatically as it burned this time. We've got about 6 years to be ready for that.